Hey guys, how's it going? This is Taylor here, and I'm outside in what's technically my backyard because it's way too nice out to be stuck in my studio. So I just want to thank you all again for continuing to watch my videos with Collin that I've been posting, the conversations with Collin. It's pretty funny that I'm out here on a beautiful day, clean shaven and everything, and the videos are still of me all bundled up in a fleece vest and beard. So I totally own the fact that those were filmed very different time. But in any case, I've got one more video for you in which Collin and I are kind of riffing off of really important topics such as social media, trust in this modern economy, trust in social media, self-acceptance, the ways in which that we as humans can get stuck these days, but also what are the ways that are not only challenges to, but also successful methods for human development these days in modern society. So we touch on a lot of those things. Obviously, as you can tell from our conversations, we just kind of riff and go off and go back and forth. And I want to just give a shout out to Collin. Collin's been doing some really cool stuff recently with his brand and his podcast. So if you haven't checked it out, go down into the video notes and check out the link to his website. It's really cool stuff. And just get in touch with him, ask him what's going on. And Collin's one of those guys that, just as a little shout out, he's one of those people that when you ask a question, or even if he's like starting to answer a question, he stops and takes the time to really think about the answer. And it's funny because a lot of people will just try to fill that silence. But at least in our case, there are a lot of times where I'll stop and I'll just wait for him to think about it. And he just does such a great job of deliberately thinking through what he cares about and what he's talking about and what he wants to share, and a little bit about how he wants to share it. He's very authentic just as he is. So that's why it's so much fun to talk with him. But I bring that up because I hope that you have a friend like that as well, or maybe a family member, or even a coworker. You can actually have deep conversations with coworkers. So that's my question to you. I wonder, do you have a friend or a coworker or a family member with whom you immediately go to a great and rewarding depth of conversation? Whatever that depth is for you, doesn't matter. But I just wonder if there's someone with whom you can just immediately go there and always have fun talking to them. So think about that. Go ahead and enjoy the video, and I will talk to you again very soon. All right, so Collin, you and I bond a lot about topics related to human psychology, the future of the human race, which we've sort of talked about in a past episode, but also mainly conceptual or foundational concepts of human development and evolution. And it can get really philosophical and really deep really fast with our conversations. But I think something that came so clearly from you one of the first times that we talked was this fascination in human development, and you even studied it to an extent. So like, tell me what your, for lack of a better question, what is your favorite or what's your favorite part of the concept of human development, and or what is the most, like, why are you so engaged with it? Why do you care so much about it?
I think my experience with it is similar to a lot of people's, in that there is a pain point in it, like in my life, for example. There was a point where I felt stuck, where I felt like I was trying to, like I was wearing a pair of pants that were suddenly too tight and it was uncomfortable. I was like I felt like there was some place to go, but I wasn't really sure what that meant. And developmental psychology, there are people that have advanced the study of it to create maps of meaning, essentially. And the general understanding, like post-1960s, Jean Piaget did a lot of research on child psychology and really examining the different stages that children go through. But up until then, people just sort of assumed that once you reached adulthood, you were done growing. And your brain...
Growing mentally, or just growing in general, in all ways?
I guess growing mentally, psychologically.
Okay.
Because your brain gets fully grown at when you're like 26.
Right. For guys.
For guys, okay. Right. It's earlier for women, right?
Yeah. Because they're better than we are.
Yeah.
They're smarter.
Yeah, it's a hard pill to swallow.
Those are the pants that are too tight. Just check our ego at the door.
Yeah. Yeah, but there are different stages of adult development as well. Mm-hmm. And the thing that got me really interested in it was it seemed like a new way to expand my way of seeing the world and my ability to take different perspectives. Because one thing that I was noticing was levels of trust in society, just across levels of society, seem to be diminishing, which totally went against a lot of the techno-utopianism of the early social networks. Like Facebook's mission statement is to connect the world, right? But the part that wasn't part of that equation was how different algorithms generate the news feed that feeds your own version of the world. So in some sense, reinforces it.
Yeah.
So in some sense, it's actually diminishing your ability to hold other perspectives and see the world through someone else's eyes.
Sure.
Step into their shoes. So my interest in studying developmental psychology was like, A, how do I make sense of my own developmental process, and B, how do I hold conversations with people and facilitate conversations with people that see the world in a completely different way.
Gotcha.
Which feels like a useful skill today.
Absolutely. There's so much about, there's so much in the, however you want to categorize it, like the self-help world or the coaching world or even the spirituality circles that talk so much more these days, I feel, about the importance of knowing yourself first before you can do anything else. Because something you and I also talked about a few videos back was the ability to accept everybody's perspective, even if it's like violently or aggressively different than yours, even if you have an emotional response to it. It's about the fact that like you know yourself, you know what your beliefs are, you know your opinions, you blah blah blah. You know yourself so well that you can be this conduit of like non-judgment for other people. And so I say that just because that's obviously a lot about, that comes up a ton in our fields of work, and that sounds like it's exactly what you're talking about, where it's important for you to fully understand yourself first before you can even have conversations with other people kind of about their journeys, because maybe you wouldn't know what questions to ask, maybe you wouldn't, maybe your knowledge of yourself would inform the questions you would ask them.
Yeah.
Yes? No?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I've been noticing there's this tension, this cultural tension between a mindset of your own individual power, or the power that you have in the world is exclusively in your sort of individual locus of control. So the only thing, maybe the only thing you should focus on is your own personal development. Like Jordan Peterson is he's like on the cultural stage now in such a huge way, and such a divisive figure in an important way, I think. Because there's this inherent tension between just focusing on yourself and trying to affect collective change. And where the two overlap is unclear. It's not, I don't think anyone has the answer to this question.
Sure.
Of where if you're trying to affect change in large groups of people and you aren't fully in touch with your own self, your own shadows, you're not really sure what's triggering you, and you're not able to stay sort of like grounded and rational in stressful situations, you could actually be doing more harm than good in a collective action situation.
Absolutely.
But on the flip side, if you're just focusing on yourself and not really seeing yourself as a part of a larger web of human relationships, you could also be doing yourself a disservice.
Yeah, absolutely.
It could be more isolating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you and I have talked about like the psychology of activism a little bit before too, and it's so, yeah, what you bring up is really interesting because you absolutely do need to know yourself so well before joining into any kind of like collective movement. You have to know what that does for you, or why you want to join into that collective movement at all, even if it's not like an organized activist kind of campaign of any kind. Just if you care about the environment or any other kind of initiative. But I take the standpoint that all collective change, this actually a lot of people, I've heard this recently, but like all collective change has to start with the individual, because that's what collective change will actually be affecting. It will be affecting the individuals. It will be affecting the world on the individual level. And so if you are not aligned with your beliefs, your triggers, your emotional life, and your own psychology, then that will dramatically affect your ability to connect with other people in that same cause, but also connect with total strangers in another part of the world who you're trying to inspire. So I absolutely agree with you. You know, you and I talked about the methods of change in the past, and those are definitely the things that are like unclear, like the best methods of activism or the best methods of influence. But I think we can all agree that it's on the individual level, or it has to start on the individual level for any change to occur. Yeah, for sure. And I think I'm at the place where trying to figure out how to like toggle between the two. Like how do they mutually inform each other? Individual change while at the same time getting involved with communities, groups of people, and talking about bigger issues. Sure.
Yeah.
And that's something we can talk about in another video, but that relates to entrepreneurship in a big way too. Because especially as a solopreneur, which you and I both are, we have to know ourselves extremely well, even just to run a business. And so, but you and I are also trying to inspire change in people, either on the group level or on the individual level. And so that's a good way of putting it, that you're toggling between the two, because in the entrepreneurial world, we are constantly toggling between those two. The mission is about whatever change or effect you're trying to inspire, but you can't serve your own mission unless you know yourself really well, unless you're taking care of and taking responsibility of yourself and your part in that change.